but in case you don't, Rev C is a newly ordained minister since last year. She's one of the last ones of receiving a unity, a divine, a master of divinity from Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute. Man, I think that I could say this. So we are so happy to have Rev C as the senior minister for Unity Ottawa. And today she's going to be talking to us about the perplexed, being perplexed by imagination. And so for no more to say, I will have Rev C come along.
All right. Oh, what happened there? Welcome, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here to be your speaker today. And, I just have to say as we start that to honor fathers is very important to me. And one of the things that I really appreciate about my dad growing up was that he taught me how to do body work on cars. So talk about that song with the four wheels. I loved that so much. I was driving at 14 because my dad let me drive the car in and out of the driveway into the court because they needed the cars to be changed because mom was going early to school that day or dad was going to work. So we would change the cars around and he would often just hand me the keys and say, okay, go do it. So that was a real treasure for me as a young girl. It's because I just loved cars and I still love cars. So I'm grateful for that. So honestly, being perplexed by imagination is more of a thing than you realize. I don't think people understand that we really aren't using our imagination a lot in everyday life. We expect it to be something grand, and it doesn't have to be grand. It has to be through you, for you, and for the world. And so we're going to get into that. That's going to be really important. And one of the things that I saw on Thursday was anybody watching the TV or the Facebook this Thursday to see the fascinating imagination that occurred in the south side of Chicago? Did anybody see that? Any hands up? Okay. So this Thursday morning, starting at 11 o'clock, the most wonderful speakers, teachers, musicians helped the Obama family open the Obama Presidential Center in the south side of Chicago. And if you get a chance to check it out on the internet, the Obama Presidential Center, now that is imagination. He took the library that he's given money to build a presidential library, right? That's what you do after you're president. And most of these libraries are, somewhere there are boxes. Very few people ever get to go to those. But his center is magic. His center is an educational center as well as a library. It is a family center. It is an environment for all people to come and understand the unfolding of great history. And I have to say that I truly love the imagination of the Obama family and what they've done. And if you could see the first painting of them together, that's at the center is created by a Nigerian artist, Nigerian-American artist. And she is amazing. What she did with her imagination to show and share the information of the Obama's journey is magnificent. So please do check this out. It is wonderful to see such great imagination going to great work for the South Side of Chicago and America, and I believe the world, because I know I'm going to be going to see this amazing monument. It's just gorgeous. It's an entire center. It's an entire park. It's just fascinating. So I hope you'll have a chance to see that. And then maybe it'll inspire you to use your imagination in this lifetime, because it's your imagination that helps you grow your journey. One thing that I realized growing up, and my mom was really good at saying this, she would always say to me, you can achieve anything you put your mind to, right? Because, you get down sometimes, you go, oh, how am I going to get this done? She would say, Cheryl, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard this or probably used it for family or friends along the way, right? So this is the beginning of our family's new thought movement. And my mother would read all these positive books about and stuff like that and share those little tidbits with me. But you know, what I would do right now is I'd take that a little bit and turn it into something a little bit different, because it's all about mind and thinking, whereas I want to bring out imagination. So I would add something to that at this point in my life if I'm going to share it with someone. And I would say that I can achieve anything that I can imagine achieving. If I can imagine achieving it, there's a great likelihood that it's going to happen, right? So I might not just have to put my mind to it, I can literally put my imagination to it. And that's up-leveling this in a fantastic unity kind of way. So let's look at your imagination for a moment. What if I were to show you that two hands, okay? This hand has a $2 bill in it. This hand has $3,000 in it, right? And I say, you can have either. You can take from either hand. Which you're going to take, right? Now, where do we go naturally, right? We go to the $3,000. That's the common pattern. The brain goes to what I see is more. Here, I'll take that. Okay, you can have that if you want. You can take the $3,000 and enjoy that. But what if, and this is a Rev C thing, you know that there's something behind that $2 bill, right? You're not going to get away with just taking the $3,000. But if you use your imagination, something's going to come out of that. What if this $2 bill is attached to something spectacular? And so imagine I'm hanging in here and just hanging that $2 bill. And so you can have it if you want, but I know you kind of want that 3,000. But what if that $2 bill, with this, you're able to acknowledge that this is change. This $2 bill is just change from the cash payment you made on your new $799,998 home. Now that is imagination, but we don't go there first. We go for what's bigger and brighter and better in the moment. But you have now been given change to your new, basically $800,000 home, minus the $2 that you can now use for the extra key, which, by the way, I wouldn't mind a copy of. So you can see how you can lighten and brighten your life. You don't have to always go speedily to what appears to be the better, because the brain wants to go to what is bigger and brighter, the bigger hamburger, the larger pizza, the bigger amount of money that we instantly see, instead of something that is non-reactive, right? That's reactivity. Responsivity often comes from using our imagination and seeing what can come next. All right. So now I want to be clear here that imagination is not the same as daydreaming, right? We often get those things confused, don't you find? So imagination, believe it or not, is still a concrete methodology, okay? And it's adaptive to particular circumstances. But you have to bring in the intention, bring in the goal, and it's concrete and it's clear. But then we get daydreaming, right? You sit there, you go into la la land, and it's all about floating endlessly in thoughts and feelings and blah, 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 goes on and on and on. That's daydreaming. It has nowhere to land. And you will not gather anything specific from daydreaming. Okay, so you have the concreteness of imagination, and daydreaming is nothing to do with that. You know, daydreaming, you could be sitting there, you're on a beach one moment, surrounded by people that you love, and suddenly you're floating through the air and you're headed, now you're above Mars, and you're with your love of your life, you're gonna plant yourself on Mars and build a home. And these are the crazy things we go through, that goes through our mind from time to time when we're just daydreaming. It has no validity overall in your life, and it really gets you stuck later down the road. because you're going to have to bring your clear identifications. So let's look at Emily Cady, for instance. Emily Cady was she was actually a homeopathic doctor, and she wrote the first book for Unity called Lessons in Truth. And she said that desire or wanting works through the faculty of imagination. That imagination gives shape to what you want. You know, like pieces on a Lego, you build things with imagination. So you can have a definite understanding of what you're claiming to manifest in your life. She creates an analogy. She says, if you're walking into a grocery store without imagination, what are you able to buy? But if you walk into the grocery store and your desire is to have a good meal, suddenly you're starting to create what you want in that meal, right? You're creating, if you want fettuccine Alfredo, you're going to have to buy the noodles. You're going to have to buy the cream. You're going to have to buy your mushrooms and your onions, and you're going to put that all together to create your sauce. Now that requires imagination, and you're putting pieces together to create something beautiful. And in this case, very delicious. So in essence, imagination is the mind's creative power at work. Whereas daydreaming, again, is just the mind freely flowing with nowhere to go. So catch yourself when you start daydreaming, come back to your breathing, go back to your positive thinking, and then be concrete about where you put that seeing. So, as you know, at Unity, we have this saying, thoughts in mind create after their kind. The thing with thought is that is kind of not taking into consideration imagination. So I want to talk to you about a group of people who really understood imagination before Unity existed. They're called the Transcendentalists. Okay, the Transcendentalists are the early group that evolved the New Thought movement. They didn't plan on it, but what they did do was they started saying, well, you know, there is something that transcends the body. Hence the word transcendentalist. Essentially, transcendentalism is a philosophical and a spiritual movement coming out of the early 1800s. And so they're unraveling this for decades when the New Thought started coming in 1850s and beyond. And so basically, it teaches that divine reality, that there is an inner wisdom, again, an inner nature, a divine nature, and it's all there for us to transcend our physical being. And they wrote books and books and books about this stuff. And one of those writers was Henry David Thoreau. Have you heard of Henry David Thoreau? You probably have at some point in your life. And he wrote Walden's Pond. Walden's Pond. If you ever have a chance to read it, it's a very interesting journey. He was in the woods for 2 years, and he had all these epiphanies about transcending the physical, and he put it in that book. But that Walden's Pond was on the land of Ralph Waldo Emerson. So literally, these guys knew each other, and they're both incredibly famous transcendentalists and philosophers. Now, Ralph Waldo Emerson was the guy who just coined it perfectly to use imagination with thinking. And what he said was this: what we conceive and believe, we can achieve. That is a crucial statement. What you can conceive, what you can see, and believe, and beliefs are all mind, they're all thinking, you can achieve. To me, this is the epitome of what we're trying to do at Unity. And we gather this from our grandfather. He's the grandfather of Unity. He really wrote some great books. This is from the book, something I think it's called On the Method or something like that. And this was a wonderful perception. So you need to take time, he's saying, in your life to conceive your life. Because it's not like thinking, it's conceiving, it's perpetuating an entire goal-focused visual thinking journey. And it's about strengthening the mind with imagination, allowing ourselves to move forward to create the best reality. And that is vital for all of us. So ask yourself, is my imagination like a speeding car? Or is my imagination like when I'm on a train and I'm going by, it looks like I'm going really slowly past all of Mother Nature and everything else that I might go by on a train, but there's a gentle flow there. So is it possible to rush imagination? I don't know. But I know that when our mind is too busy, going too fast, it's impossible to push or create imagination. But what could happen is that if you're in the slower state, you're going to be listening, you're going to be seeing, and you're going to be really giving yourself the opportunity to experience your imagination, which we know is imperative overall. So I think it's important that we ask ourselves, what is my imagination creating for me? Is this what I want? Is my life what I want? Or could I create something else with my imagination? These are the things that we need to ask ourselves today and this week and this month, because it's the month of imagination. Although it's mostly done, I think it's important that we really take the time to understand that that's important. So if you want to go to Venice and go around in one of those little boats and see Venice, then you have to imagine yourself there. If you want to go to the Louvre in France, you have to be able to imagine yourself there and to feel it. And that will get you through it. And then there's times when, people like me, they want to change the world. And so I'll imagine, for instance, tents, big white tents over top of countries. So I'll look at the map and I'll see Ukraine is now covered in a big tent, Gaza's covered in a big tent, and Iran's covered in a big tent, and the Sudanese communities are all covered in big tents. And inside, they're all at peace, and they're all experiencing that love from the light that's coming through the tent to support them, but they're safe. There's no bombs falling. There's nothing getting in their way. They're able to create food here and water. They're able to go to sleep at night knowing that they will not have bombs falling on their community. And I imagine this, and I know it works. I know and I trust that we are all helping when we imagine safety and security for other people, even if it's just at home with our kids or a partner. I'll often imagine my spouse, who's a motorcycle instructor, in light so that she's safe. I don't think she knows how much I've had to do that lately. But I do it to protect, and I believe it works. And I know that imagination has worked because Unity has received tens of thousands of letters and comments and testimonials over the past 100 years with gratitude for thinking and imagination affirmatively. And it makes a big difference in people's lives. That is definitely important to understand. So now, worry. Is worry connected to imagination? When I'm worrying, am I actually visualizing what I'm worrying about? Can you imagine the damage we're doing if we're actually visualizing all our worries? I mean, no wonder we have to worry, because we're actually participating in a bit of a nightmare for ourselves. So we have to be more cautious, right? Eric Butterworth said that the importance of imagination in our life, suggesting that worry is a misuse of our imagination, and he encouraged us to focus on positive possibilities, to get away from worry, say no, just say no. Getting back on track. No to this, yes to positive imagination, positive thoughts. He believes that the only thing that matters are the things that happen to us, and that dreaming lofty ideas can lead to personal growth and success. And Butterworth also states that faith is a part of this. It urges us in our potential and teaches us of the possibilities that lie ahead. So overall, he's advocating to use imagination constructively, right? Not to sit there and worry about things that you can't change. Have faith, have belief that all good things are coming my way and unfolding, that all protections are in place, that all safeties are in place, that all good things are manifesting. And imagination does make the difference. For instance, ever hear of a little story called David and Goliath? Now, do you think that David didn't use some imagination to take down Goliath? I'm pretty sure he did. I'm pretty sure he had to imagine that stone in his hand and that thing that he shot it from was going to go right here. And he knew how to get it there with his imagination and his thinking, because there was nobody else who was able in the story to take down Goliath. But this small guy, probably 10 times bigger than him was Goliath. So you can see how even in the mythological stories that we share, we perpetuate imagination as a valuable tool. Now, there are, however, negative imaginings that have come to fruition, that have taken over, that have destroyed. So you might have heard of the Roman Empire, the Roman civilization, and all the emperors that worked to use power and control in their mind and visualizing themselves taking over countries and nations. It wouldn't have been successful for them if they hadn't have visualized it. And that's a pretty scary thing, if you can visualize taking over other countries and destroying their communities and their people. They did that to the Jews, to the Germans, to the English. They did that to the early Christians. And then when the Roman civilization imagined themselves as Christians, then they did it to everybody who was against the Christians. They lasted 2,200 years through the power of their strong imaging of their power. And finally they collapsed because probably there was too many people imagining peace and love and light over here. And we've said enough to that. But we have to be so cautious and careful, because negativity can plague us, and we'll start imagining that instead of imagining what is good and healthy for us. And I know this happens a lot in health phobias. People will tend to imagine the worst of their health and the outcomes with the doctor or the dentist or whatever it is. But we have to be able to go in there and say, I've got this. I've got this. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be in and out really easily with love and care, and I'm going to come out fully well. So again, staying linked to the positive is a good thing. And that's why with imagination, we use our inner wisdom, and we go out there with the beliefs that, okay, I sit with the divine, which is all good, and I'm an aspect of that, which is inherently delivered to me at all times. So I can express the good in me outwardly and through my thoughts and through my imagination. And if we sit in that awareness, we are likely to have better experiences in the years ahead. But we are not doing it so great in some areas, if you think about it. Because although we have great potential for imagination, I believe that we are in a deficit imagination era. So what is that? That's a world where we give all these kids video games, where they use their imagination to smash things apart and destroy people and monsters and cars and whatever. That is deficit imagination. And we make all these movies about murders and zombies and horror and true crime, all those murder mysteries. I know we all love a little mystery. We need a little curiosity, but that is deficit imagination. It's not leading us to a great night or a great tomorrow if we're focused on what is scary and dangerous and violent. We need to get our kids away from this and get ourselves away from this to live the best possible imagination as we move forward. So we have to imagine what we want to occur in our life. And I've been doing this all week because obviously I'm focused on this talk this weekend. So I have been imagining my next year. Later we're going to have a meditation, and I want you to be ready to write out for yourself what you want for the next year of your life. What is it you're going to need to imagine to have what you want for the next year of your life? You want to let that door open for yourself, right? And you're going to need some time and some patience for this, because nothing that can be imagined that's great is going to be rushed. Can't be rushed. You have to go through many layers to get there. And I'm going to explain how these layers work, okay? So in 1976, we saw the outcome of some awesome imagining. And then in 1977, in 77, Star Wars came out. That was the biggest deal that year. I mean, it was crazy, all the kids, all of us who went to see Star Wars in 77. The imagination of George Lucas is stupendous, even today. And you can see what it does to the rest of the community, what everybody was talking about and thinking and feeling in my age range at the time. But also something that came out in 1976 that truly has stuck with me, because I have often felt that I need to remember that when you are down and out, that you still can reach for the greatest of success. So, ever hear of a guy named Sylvester Stallone? Yeah. Well, he created a little known movie called Rocky. And I know you know that. Even if you haven't seen it, which I think everybody should see Rocky 1. Rocky shows up with this great desire to live a better life. He's strong, but he needs to get stronger. He's fit, but he needs to get fitter. But he believes and he trusts wholeheartedly that he can make it happen. He's not going to just sit there in a meat packing plant for the rest of his life. He wants better for himself, and he's going to make it happen. So he's written as a character who's running through the streets of Philadelphia in his tracksuit, and he's just running and running and running. And he knows that he has to push himself. But then at one point in this movie, you see him feeling so good about what he's achieved, visioning himself successful, pushing himself to do the work that he knows that he needs to do. And then you see him at one point running up the steps of the Philadelphia, it's either the legislature or the largest library I've ever seen. And he's going up the steps, and he gets to the top of the steps, and he's doing this, and he's feeling his success, right? This is it. I've reached the pinnacle. I've got my belt. And he was a boxer, and he knows he's got it, and he's just jumping around like this. And of course, we got the great music going with it too. You know, it was an amazing experience to watch, because I knew in my gut that this man was not only believing in his success. At that moment, you could see he was feeling it. He was feeling his greatest achievement. And if there's anything I've learned about imagination over the years, is that you can't just have a thought to achieve. You need to see it, and you need to feel it. And feeling is what Rocky was able to do. And we know, of course, he was successful. But to be clear, Sylvester Stallone was the great imaginer. He is a prolific artist, by the way. His art is stunning, and he was a prolific writer. And in that year, he took his movie, and he's a young guy, you know, he wrote this late 20s, early 30s, and he had to shop it around. Nobody wanted it, so he did it, and he played the role himself. He imagined his success. He got to the top of the list of movies that year, #1, all over the world. $225 million in 1976, which is huge. This man knows how to imagine. And I'm grateful for him, because he kept me going. That movie kept me going through a few hard years. So imagination is not just about paintings and crafts or movies or songs. Because when we know imagination, we know that imagination turns everything we imagine into form or experience. This is why we need to be attentive to our imagination, because it is a fantastic tool, and it will create a form, whether you're going to be getting your new car, or it'll create a great experience, like traveling somewhere you really feel the need through you to go. So how am I going to remember all this? How am I going to remember how imagination works? So I've created a little mnemonic for you, okay? So I put it in an acronym so that you will remember how to work with your imagination. And all you have to remember is the word gift. Imagination is my gift. G is the goal you want to achieve, or the intention you're making. I is the imaging, the visualizing that you're going to be doing. F is the feeling you need to have. You need to believe it and see it. You need to feel it. And T is never to forget that you need the good thoughts to create the good imaging. The affirmative thinking, that this is the positive imagination experience for me. And this is your gift. So try to keep that in mind and heart as you move forward in the years ahead. Today, I need to work on the gift. Set my goal or intention for what's coming. Do the visualizations. Feel the outcome. And make sure you're using the good thoughts, the thinking, to create that gift. This is really important stuff. So it goes back to even Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle, who I love and adore. I often feel like she's beside me sometimes. That's imagination for you, right? So imagination for her was literally saying, you are a child of God, therefore you cannot be sick. If you are in God, with God, as a child of God, God the perfect, God the healthiest, God the intelligence, God the abundance, God the wholeness, you can't possibly be sick. And when you visualize that experience of you surrounded in God or God in you, you start to actually heal. And she was very clear on that. These are the steps that we have to take. Because I'm an aspect of God and God is in full health, therefore I can be in full health. And she was clear. And to me, that's always been about imagination with that statement. When I visualize myself in the light of God, the oneness, the divinity, through me and around me, knowing and trusting that I am as that, therefore, I can be equally as perfect, equally as whole, equally as abundant, equally as healthy, and it feels great. So you could start now if you want. You could actually say, I imagine myself healthy and happy. I am healthy and happy. And then you go and you take a moment to visualize yourself in that state of being happy and healthy. That's what's going to give you that greatest potential, that greatest outcome. So it's time to write a script for yourself. What do you want as you move forward? What is it you want to imagine yourself doing and being and experiencing? You're going to need to take some time to do this. You have to have patience. You have to be willing to sit down for a couple minutes and actually have the feeling. And imagine if you did it 5 minutes or 10 minutes, having that feeling. I can remember doing this so long ago, and I always imagined a red scooter. And I would see myself going around in that red scooter, and I was so excited. I could feel the excitement and the enthusiasm. And then one day, one of my friends said, would you like to buy my red scooter? And I said, oh yeah, for sure. So she sold it to me for $400, 1992. But I guess I didn't imagine this part. She called me up a month later, told me how much she missed her scooter and could she buy it back? So let's just say I have a different level of imagination now. I take it to the next level. I see myself on it for that period of time. And then I see myself the year after, and the year after, and the year after. I extend my imagination, not just 10 ramps around the neighborhood. I see it years ahead. And that has given me cars that actually last for years. So that's a good thing. So remember that what you can imagine or conceive and believe, you can achieve. Imagination is your gift. Remember that. G for goals, I for imaging, F for feeling, and T for thinking well or good or positively. It's a tied up little package. It's your little gift, the beautiful little bow on top. That is imagination. You deserve it and you can have it. Awesome. All right. So now, if you'd like to join me, thank you, in a wonderful, gentle, flowing meditation, bring in what you want to achieve for the next year. Okay? So just saying to yourself today, I'm filled with joy, peacefully living my best life yet. And breathe in and out, slowly and deeply. Connecting to your body, make sure you are in the heart area. Visualize yourself at your heart so you know that you are in the body, able to engage the body in the greatest potential of your health. Remembering, imagination is far greater than creating a piece of art or taking a trip. It's about visualizing my life into its wholeness, its greatest potential, its healthiness, its happiness. My imagination turns everything I visualize into a form or experience. And breathing in and out gently, I will affirm that all my imaginings are about creation, creating something magnificent for me, experiencing something magnificent for me. It is my loving intention to create something beautiful for myself this year ahead and maybe further ahead. But right now, it is my intention to do what? Say it to yourself. What is it you're looking to in the coming year? New relationship, better relationship, new job, new environment, greater friendships, and on. Just take a moment to intend this again. I intend that. Now, I would like you to visualize yourself in that situation, being happy and healthy. Breathing deeply, being happy and healthy in your intention. And now I want you to imagine feeling, I want you now to go in and feel the success of your intention's fruition. It has come true. You feel it, and it feels great. You feel abundant. You feel happy and healthy. You feel strong and determined. You feel like a winner. You feel like you are successful. This is a great gift. A wonderful, wonderful gift. Now allow all these feelings to arise. Believe them, trust them. And now just sit with them for the next 30 seconds and allow the feelings to get stronger and stronger. Gently and slowly reaffirm the great success of your imagination and the outcomes you're going to have in your life. And just say, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the success that I'm having, and I see myself having. And today after service, please write out more clearly what you want to achieve and practice in the week ahead. Seeing it, feeling it, thinking it good as your gift. Thank you. And so it is.